Okay, watch this. On flick? Not on flick. So hi everyone, today I'm going to do a review over the book I Was Here by Gayle Forman. This was sent to me by Penguin in exchange for an honest review, even though this came out in like January or something, I believe. I have read both of Gayle Forman's other books, If I Stay and Just One Day. I was not a fan of If I Stay, but I loved Just One Day. So going into this, I had no idea if I was gonna like it, but I definitely wanted to try it out. And let me just say, I was not disappointed. I went into this knowing there was mixed reviews and I was not sure if I was gonna like it, but I will honestly say I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars, and let's get right on into it. The book is about a girl named Cody whose best friend Meg commits suicide. Meg's parents ask Cody to go to Megan's college and go collect all of her things since they don't want strangers handling it and they can't do it themselves. So she goes up there, meets all her friends' roommates, and sees her life there and realizes her friends kind of been keeping some secrets from her, and there's a lot that Cody doesn't know about Meg. And so it's a whole mystery unraveling things that she doesn't know about Meg that might have caused her suicide. Even though it is a mystery, there's a lot of self-discovery along the way. The entire book is just about Cody figuring out what really happened with Meg. I began this book super concerned because for the first 30 pages or so, it's kind of hard to get into. I find that in all three of Gayle Forman's books, it can drag a little bit because Gayle likes to kind of go off on tangents a little bit and step out of the action narrative and go into like backstories and all that different jazz, so it kind of takes a little bit of a push at the beginning to get through a bit of the beginning information. Because the book does take place after the suicide occurs, you kind of have to have some sort of backstory. I thought that was just a little bit slow, but again, as soon as I reached like the 30 to 50 page mark, it really shifted tones and really became kind of more interesting. It actually starts to read kind of like a murder mystery. It's very fast paced and it's constantly like clues and figuring out who people are and internet hacking and trying to figure out things that happened, things on her computer that she left behind. One thing I love about Gayle Forman is that she writes this type of YA where it's categorized as YA, but it's about characters that are in college. Just One Day was like that, and I'm not sure if I Stay is like that. I haven't read the second one yet, and that might be college-y, but I love this whole college YA thing. I know college is typically a new adult genre, but I don't really like new adult because it all centers around sex. And so Cody isn't actively in college at a campus, but I think it's just so cool how we have like 18 and 19-year-old characters in YA because it's really refreshing, especially for me who's kind of, I don't want to use the term outgrowing YA, but definitely at the age where I can start moving past it a little bit. I think it's very refreshing to have books that are about 18-year-olds. My absolute favorite thing about this book is that the writing is just great. I think Gayle Forman is just a beautiful author. She just phrases things so nicely, and I can definitely tell there's like a gradual improvement every single book she publishes. I was not a fan of If I Stay, like I said, so moving from that to Just One Day, I love Just One Day so much. I think it's beautiful, and I think this just gets even better. I think this was written so raw. Gayle has such a way of making characters fleshed out and just capturing the basest of emotions in humans, and everyone can relate to them. So no matter who you are, or if you can't relate to the situation, you can still put yourself in Cody's shoes and think, I have felt this way in my life at least once. And that's because Gayle is able to write it so flawlessly. She doesn't just make relatable characters, she makes them have genuine emotion. And even when a character is having a tantrum or is doing something weird, you still are always understanding. And that's my favorite thing, is that even though if at some point I'm like, oh, well, why would she do that? I can step back and say, in the situation she's in, that makes sense, even if it's not what I would do. She makes her characters so real and so likable that I just was such a fan of Cody's, because everything she did, I was like, You go, girl. I knocked off half a star for this book for two things. The first thing is that I felt like the end was a bit anticlimactic for reasons I can't say because of spoilers, but I will say I was just a tiny bit disappointed at the end. And then second of all, I think there was a little bit of an unnecessary side romance. I know that this whole book takes place where she kind of has a boy as her accomplice and finding out all these details. And I really liked him. I liked his character. Again, beautifully written character. But I feel like in the end, they kind of rushed a couple of things and were together. And I wasn't a fan of that. I feel like this book would have been perfect without that. But nevertheless, again, I loved the two characters. It wasn't a huge deal and I wasn't very disappointed about it. It was just a side thing that I was like, we didn't have to do that, but whatever. Overall, like I said, this book just left me feeling very like, because it's so real. Like, throughout the book, Cody kind of has to put herself in Meg's shoes and say, if I was a suicidal person, what would I do? And I think that was a very interesting perspective to have in this book because it plays kind of with the idea that at one point, every single person has thought, well, what if I do die? Like, everyone kind of questions that at one time or another, and it really plays around with that in this book, kind of like Cody questioning herself, well, what would happen if I died, and what would happen, the consequences of that decision, and it just plays around a lot with the themes of suicide and the impact it has on people, and I think it was so beautiful. And one thing I especially love is at the very end, it has an author's note where she talks about her inspiration for this, but it also goes on to say things about if you are feeling suicidal or you know someone or something like that, and here's how to get help. And I just think that is an amazing thing to put in YA books. I've seen that happen now more than once, and I just think it is awesome. I think Gayle did an amazing job encompassing a story about suicide and how painful and how raw and how frustrating especially it can be. And even though I've never experienced it, thankfully, I was still able to feel sorrow and anger alongside Cody, and I think it was just a very well executed story. And in the end, I would highly recommend it to you if you were kind of skeptical? If you were skeptical about it like I would definitely say go for it, get it from the library if you're still not sure. But that's about all I have to say about it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've read this book, let me know down below how you enjoyed it, and until next time, bye-bye!